All right, this was the Wednesday group last week, and unfortunately, I forgot to click a button. If you notice up in the top where it says Mike, it's X'd out. That was my mistake. So I'm going to try and voice this one over. I'm going to do my best. I am not going to do this twice. So we're going to take this in one cut. Here we go. We push play. What this one was about, I had Greg on here, who I really should pay him to be on these groups, but obviously it's not in the budget. So there goes that. And you'll notice I got the whiteboard up, and I'm going to talk about oil separators on this one. It's a pretty basic Wednesday group here. You can see up there the lines are circling my name, and those are the guys that are talking. So I'm talking to everybody there on the group, and it sucks you guys don't get to hear this, but it is what it is. You know, I made that mistake. This was a fun Wednesday group. It was last week. It's right now October 8th, so it was the week before, 1 week ago from today. So here I am. I'm just gonna erase the group from the week before. It's just wiring diagrams, some basic stuff where I was going over the switchback relays. That was all switchback relays, and how they operate. We use switchback relays in this trade to, if the controller goes out, so the compressors don't run wild. It's a way to get control of the compressors. Okay. Had a pretty good group here. I don't have the heart to wipe away my my voltage, the way they got the phases going on there, and how it's three phase versus single phase, and why we have 208 instead of 240 volt in our stores. That's what that little lesson was there off to the right. It was basically a demonstration on why we have 208. It's maybe I'll get into that next one. Next one, I guarantee you I won't make the same mistake, because I don't like doing this. So I love doing the class, but I don't like voicing over, obviously, because it's not as fun. What I'm doing, I'm drawing compressors here. This is what you look at the back of a rack, and this is kind of typical of how I draw them. And it's kind of funny that only like supermarket refrigeration guys would recognize what I just drew. I think I even said that. Greg is chiming in, and a couple of the other guys are chiming in. We missed out on this one. What a loss. What a loss. One mistake. So I'm drawing compressors here. I'm going to draw the whole system out, but my main goal here is to show the different types of oil separators. I just drew the oil levels and the compressors there, and what you're looking at is the backside of compressor rack, basically a typical 3 compressor rack. Doesn't matter. None of it matters how many compressors. It's all the same stuff. Okay. And I think I even mentioned that, like, hey, only a few select people in the entire world knew what I just drew, and you guys are the select people. It's kind of cool. So that's the discharge line I'm drawing there. I'm going on and on here. I don't know about what. What a loss, losing that audio. I'm drawing a gigantic oil separator here. Obviously, this is way oversized. There's the condenser coming up. Typical how I draw it, when we go over the Wednesday groups. And a giant oil separator. Look at the size of that thing. Crazy, huh? Obviously, they don't look that big. And what I'm talking about here is that this style of oil separator. It's got two pipes in the top. I think I'm talking about two pipes in the top. Give it a chop. Meaning, if you've got one of these, it's coalescent oil separator. The Henry's ones that, any oil separator with two pipes in the top, get rid of them. Get them out of there. They're just cause problems. They're good for low load situations, but, they got this stupid sack inside there. I'll probably draw it here in a second. I remember drawing it, so it's probably coming up. But I'm just telling everybody here how you identify them. This coalescent oil separators, the Henry's one, the blue ones you're used to seeing. There's the float plate going on the bottom there. And here it is. I'm going to draw the wire mesh bag. And that is, it needs to have that there. That's how it coalesces oil out of it. It kind of like, I don't know, squeezes it out in a sense, right? Squeezes the oil out. But it's got to be there, right? Now I'm going to talk about, what happens when the bag rips and it won't separate anymore, right? And the problem is, you have a compressor take a nosedive on you and choke out a couple pistons out into the discharge line. Guess where they're going to end up? Yeah, right in that sack. And the roughest part here is that, how do you access that? Well, through the float in the bottom. It's an impossible thing. There's some drips of oil coming down and talking about how it makes a level in the bottom down there. And I'm going on about how we have to have that sack. It's like almost like a window screen, but heavy duty stainless steel, screen, and it's attached on there literally with a 5/8. It's a hose clamp, like the same thing you see on a radiator. Older cars with the radiator hose, and it's got the hose clamp on there. That's all that's holding that thing on there. So if you got the ambition and you want to take it off there, you can reach your arm up in there, up in the bottom, and if you can work, without seeing, and you could get your 5/16 nut driver on there, you could take it off and fix it. But what happens, a compressor chokes out and, blasts all its guts out, and it ends up in that sack. What's going to happen? Boom. It's going to explode that sack, right? Because you got the pressure differential, right? All that parts and stuff that go on there, that's it. It goes, and what happens? It almost always tears on the bottom. See where I kind of highlighted the bottom there? It's kind of, the sack is like kind of like put together. I don't know how it's put together, but it's put together on the bottom there somehow. I don't know if it's welded or soldered. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But that's where it always rips, on the bottom of that thing, and all the guts come flying out of there, and it busts up, and it goes all into the oil float, and next thing you know, all the compressors are off on oil fill. And what do you got to do? You got to get in there and drain all that oil out, and it's in there. Whatever's left, a lot of times there's no oil left because it starts blowing right out into the system, right? You end up with no oil because it's all out in the system, right? So talking about how that bag will cause problems if it blows out. And we've got a couple ways to fix it. A couple of guys, some guys, there's a couple ways, right? Some guys are fold the bag and be done with it, because it's stainless steel, so it's really hard metal and it'll stay folded. Some guys like me, I'm a vice grip guy. I'll fold it once and put a pair of vice grips in there and call it done, and order a new temperite. Obviously, obviously that's got to go. Once you get in there and do this operation, it's time to go. It's got to be gone. So, don't get in there and think you're going to fold this bag over and that's it. Your happy days are over, or your sad days, I guess. But, if that happens, cut that thing out. 2 pipes in the top, give it a chop. That's the saying. So I'm just, I don't know, talking like I am now about it, here, pointing out several aspects about how these things suck because you can't service them, and if you do service them, you end up an oily mess, and you go home with an oily mess if you don't put a set of coveralls on, and you go home smelling like oil, and your wife hates you, and you get a divorce, right? So we don't want that, obviously. So put your coveralls on, right? Wear gloves and protect yourself, right? So that's what I'm talking about here. This is a coalescent separator. It doesn't depend on oil. It doesn't depend on refrigerant flow. This thing will separate oil if one compressor is running or all three. It's just going to separate oil. That's what they do. But the drawback is any crap gets wedged into that screen, and then anything wedged in that screen is going to create a pressure differential, and a pressure differential is going to, it's going to blow stuff out. Blow apart. It's going to break stuff, and it's going to break at the weakest area, which is the seam at the bottom. So that's what I'm talking about here. Maybe it's better that you didn't have to listen to me do this, but you got to listen to me now. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? All right. So I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just still talking about it. Telling everybody how to identify them. 2 pipes in the top, remember, coalescent. And that doesn't apply to Temprites, everybody. Temprite's a coalescent, but there's 2 pipes in the side, right? These are the Henrys, the ones we're used to seeing. They're on all the racks out there that are not Super Plus, and any of the Super Plus have a different style. We'll go over that, though. We'll go over that one here. Just be patient. Yeah, I'm talking about how the oil is dripping out, and obviously you want the oil to separate before it goes out into the condenser and out to the system, because what happens, if it doesn't separate, it goes into the system, and what happens to your compressors? You run out of oil, right? And then what happens? You go in there and you're like, oh man, I don't want to service that thing because it's a pain in the ass, so you pump in some oil, you get it running, and you pump in some more oil and you get it running, right? And then next thing you know, you've got enough oil in there to supply it back in through the suction, and you can keep the thing running, but it's not right. You get one good slug of that oil, guess what? Broken compressor. So we don't want that. We don't want that. So anyhow, yeah, and you notice the oil's on the bottom of this thing, and this is why I like the Temprite so much, because you don't have to get in the bottom of them anymore. You can work with a pair of gloves. You don't need overalls and coveralls and the whole, you don't have to, duct tape up your arms and, put a whole suit on or anything. These ones you do. They suck. Go ahead and let Henry see this video. I'll say it to their face. They suck. They do the job, though. All right, I'm probably babbling on here. I'm not sure what I'm saying. Talking about how it separates by coalescent, Yeah, it's just the screen, kind of squeezes it out like a juice squeezer, like a juicer. You squeeze the lemon and a juice comes out. It's kind of the same thing. It squeezes through the filter on the screen material. I'm talking about how, if it tears a hole in the bottom of that thing, it's not going to squeeze out no more. And it's an emergency, guys. If you, you got to repair that bag or that sack on there, which, by the way, you should do it right then. And remember, when, if it does tear that bag, all that crap that's in that bag is going to come shooting out into the bottom. It's going to clog up all the floats and all the float on, mechanism on the bottom of the separator. And it's just nothing good comes of that. So you got to get in there and clean out that. You're better off also just having a spare float or a new float and just swapping it out. Don't F around with the old float. Put in a brand new float. Take that old float and clean it, when you got time. You don't have product, getting warm. Just pop in a new float. You got it working. And also, by the way, I'm probably saying that Westermeyer makes a float that works on the Henry's oil separators on all of them, and it's got they claim 20% more oil flow or something like that. And what that means to me is bigger port, right? Because the stupid port on the float on these things is so damn small, a rat turd's going to plug it up. So hopefully we don't have any rats living in our pipes, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know what I'm answering questions here. You've noticed over there on the right, the guys are asking questions, and that's what we missed here. What a miss. This was a miss, but I'm doing the best I can. We're missing all the questions they're asking. Great questions, by the way. These guys ask great questions, and I'm answering them the best I can here. Doing the best I can. All right. Well, look what I got in my hand. I got the rag. I'm about to wipe that one out. So everybody take note. About to lose it. About to lose that one. There it goes. Look, I couldn't stop talking. 2 pipes on the top. Give it a chop. That's what I'm saying. I guarantee you. Give it a chop. Get them out of there. Put a temp right in. The best advice I can give anybody. Yank those things out. Put a temp right in. You'll thank me later. Yeah, the filters plug up, but guess what it's doing? When them filters plug up and then temp rights, they're doing you a favor, because guess what's not plugging up? The filter dryers in your cases, the filters inside your liquid lines, all of it. Nothing's plugging up. It's plugging up in that separator. That's better, easier to get to, faster, quicker. Like the $6 million man, right? Faster, quicker, whatever. All right, now I'm going to draw a helical. Look at the size of that separator. Holy crap. That's a huge separator. Now, remember, on these helicals, these depend on the velocity, right? This is a different style. It's not a coalescent. There's no screen that squeezes the oil out. These guys here literally spin the oil out. Look at that. It goes in a circle like that. It's got a little device in the middle. It's hard to draw, but there's a thing in the middle that looks like an auger. You ever seen them digging post holes? That like drill bit thing that they use on the post hole thing, electric ones. It's like that. It's like welded in there, and it spins the oil, and it sticks it to the side, or there's some mesh on the side that captures it, and it drizzles down to the bottom. So that's what I'm talking about here. And see the pipe going all the way down to the bottom? That's the outlet. So it forces the oil to spin all the way. Look at I'm drawing right there. That's the mesh, and it goes around on the inside. It's like a screening material, But it's just there. It's what it's there for is so that the velocity kind of gets disrupted, gives the oil a chance to drizzle down. That's what that's for. But yeah, it goes all the way down to the bottom there, and then it, hopefully the oil's all, squished out of there, and then it comes up free of oil up to the condenser. That's what you're looking at. And then at the bottom there, that's your oil sitting in the bottom, hopefully, without a bunch of compressor parts. Now this doesn't have any, screen, so any compressor parts that, that puke out, they're going to end up in the bottom of these things, and you're going to have to, clean them out, and also remember, as these compressors wear, they wear slowly into like a sludge. The metal wears out as these pistons are turning. This is oiled up, they're lubed up, but it slowly wears out. The rings wear out. they get, older, and just the metal starts to wear out and it turns into like this metallic sludge. And that's what you see. Anybody that's gone into these floats and said, where's this mud coming from? It's this mud. It's like silver mud. And that's literally what you're looking at, is that's the compressors wearing out. So I'm probably talking about this, and look at, I'm expanding my hands, like saying, oh, look at, pushes the gas to the side, and centrifugal forces pushing this oil out. It gets into that mesh and it drizzles down. That's all this is. Now these will not work. That's why these are tough. This is why in the colder climates, why you have to have the head pressure up so high, is you got to have that flow. You lose that flow, you lose your oil separation. You don't have to worry about that with the temp rate, or the other ones with two pipes in the top. You don't have to worry about that, but the other stuff that, the baggage those other ones carry with them, that's what you got to worry about. But these ones here, you need the flow. These words work fine in Southern California because our climate here is, we have cold days and we have hot days, but we don't have ultra cold days. In the deserts, we have ultra hot days, but we have evap condensers that, take care of us. Evap condensers out there keep our head pressures low. We have trillium condensers that keep the head pressures low, but these depend on that flow. These depend on the compressors running, right? So it depends on the engineering of the rack. It really does. I don't know what else I can say about these. Here, look at me. I'm going to try to draw the thing in the middle, because actually Greg here, you can see him talking over there. You can see the square lighting up. That's him telling us. He's the one that brought it up. It's like one of them auger things. So I'm going to try. I'm doing my best to draw it. Look, guys, it's going to come out really terrible. It's literally the same thing you just looked at. It's just super hard to draw in a cartoon like this. I'm a second attempt to draw it because it goes way to the edge. It goes way out to the edge. It forces this gas to go around in this circle. What's funny is those giant tractors you see in the gold mines, or the iron mines, those like giant tractors with the 22 feet tires. They don't have air filters in those. They depend on this same centrifugal forces to take the dust out of there. It's crazy. If you ever seen one running, if you ever get a chance to look at one running, you see this dust falling out of a big tube like that. That's what they're doing. Same thing. Dust flies out of the air by centrifugal force. It's a helical air filter. They don't have they use so much air. There's so much air in those things because of giant diesel engines and it's so dusty. They don't have any choice. I think they might have some sort of last means of defense or whatever, that filters that so you don't get any dust in case anything fails. But same principle. It's kind of funny when you watch those things, you see a video or documentary of those things, and you literally watch these things driving through this real dusty area, and dust is falling out of these things. It's crazy. But same principle, right? That is a helical. Notice the pipe in the side. So anytime you got one pipe in the side and one pipe out the top, that's a helical. I'm not going to say pipe in the side, pipe in the top, give it a chop, because you don't have the bag to worry about. But I will say I would rather have a Temprite than these because of the fact that, see that oil level in that separator? Yeah, you service that thing, guess where that oil's going? That's right, all over you. You don't have that problem with the Temprite. I'm sure I'm making that point clear. What am I drawing here? Oh, look at that. That's a reservoir. That's an oil reservoir. They probably asked me about the reservoirs. Now, these all take a reservoir because I didn't draw the helical. I didn't draw a turbo shed. The turbo shed is a helical also, but it has a reservoir on the bottom. It's a high pressure. Call them high pressure. This one here is a low pressure oil system that I'm drawing. It's got the OCV valve. that goes to suction. It's a 20 psi differential valve. All it is a spring, 20 psi spring. That's it. Nothing more. There's no magic in them. It's just if it gets 20 psi differential, the spring opens up and it releases the pressure. That's all it is. Nothing more. So as the gas comes out of the high pressure from the oil separator, it goes up into the reservoir, and obviously the pressure's got to go somewhere. So the OCV20 opens up and releases any excess pressure, puts it right back in the suction line. That's it. Super simple. Simple stuff, guys. This is not brain surgery, right? Not rocket science. It's refrigeration science. I don't know what I'm talking about here, though. I erased it for some reason. Oh, look what I'm going to do. Look at this. What is this? High pressure oil system, right? This is a turbo shed, better known as a turbo shed. And we'll put a Y valve here. Watch this. We'll put a Y valve. Yep, Y valve. And that valve there keeps the oil pressure going out to the compressors at 20 psi above suction. That's all it is. It's a differential valve also, but it's high pressure all the way to that Y valve, right? And the oil level sits there, right? See where I'm drawing it there? That is where the level is. So, talking about the Y valve, it looks like I forgot to erase one line up there. Oh, no, there is actually a plate there. So I think I drew that plate, that center line on the separator. Yeah. We call these turbo sheds. I don't know why, but that's what Husband named them, so turbo shed it is. Talking about the Y valve and how it works. It's nothing more than a differential valve. There'll be why it's called a Y valve is because there's two lines coming off it. One going to the oil regulators on the side of the compressor, which require the 20 psi, higher than suction in order for the oil to flow. And one line goes to the suction, and that just samples the suction pressure, right? It's all it's doing is taking a measurement of the suction pressure, and it knows what to do, right? It's going to keep it 20 psi above the suction. So it needs to know what the suction pressure is. So it's got a line coming off of the Y valve. And the Y valve then knows what to do, right? It'll send the oil at the correct pressure down to those. I just drew what we call an oil regulator. It's a float, but it's more than just a float. Don't get it twisted, guys. That's not just a float there. That is a float that is designed and engineered with a pressure differential in mind. Okay. Most of the time, it's it only works up to 90 psi, but we don't go that high. These things come factory set. Oil regulator for a compressor comes factory set at just under half sight glass at 20 psi above suction, right? So 20 psi differential on that regulator or oil regulator will give you just under half sight glass. If you put 30 psi on top, it'll go up higher, but it will stop. So 30 psi will give you a certain level, 40 psi will give you a certain level, up to 90 psi will give you a certain level. And that's the only time you ever need to adjust those, guys, but you should never have to. Factory set, man, that thing should be good. If you've got a Carlisle compressor though, let me warn you that Carlisle compressors where that regulator hooks up has a lip on the end. And sometimes just under half sight glass won't be high enough to get the oil into the compressor. It can be deceiving. Like you look at that regulator and be like, oh, it's a great level, but it's not. So don't let that deceive you. All right, I'll be back. All right, stand by, guys. I'll be right back. All right, sorry, that was a phone call. And as you know, in refrigeration, we take the call from the techs when they call. All right, so hopefully you fast forward to this point. Sorry about that. Where were we? We're talking about the oil regulators, right? So it's not just a float, guys. You raise that pressure, the oil level is going to raise. Look at the directions. Open next time you buy one of these things, actually read the directions instead of throwing them away. There's a graph on there, and it's a curve, and it'll tell you how many turns from the top. So if you have a OCV 30 or the Y valve is broken and it's shooting out 40 psi, you can turn it. You can open it to the top stop and turn it the right amount of turns, and it'll be the perfect level. They're a very well engineered device here. Okay. So yeah, that's the oil regulators. Great device. They will always be needed. Obviously, the newer stuff is coming out CO2, and we use the OMBs, which is literally an electronic eye that sees the level and shoots high pressure oil into there, and same type of thing. But we're still back in the Stone Age here, right? What am I drawing there? I have no idea what that is. Filter, maybe? I don't know. Strainer? Probably a strainer or a filter. Filter, it looks like. All right, there goes that. I'm deleting all this. Guess what I'm about to draw? Oh, yeah. Everybody's favorite. The temperite. Where are we at here? About halfway through. I'm sitting here figuring out how in the hell am I going to draw this? Now I'm just answering some questions here from the guys. I would have lost this audio, man. Yeah, so today's the 8th, October 8th. So as soon as I'm done with this voiceover here, I'll upload this on YouTube and you guys can suffer through it. But there's some good info here. What is this? Satellite compressor. All right. All right, we're going to talk satellite compressor here. I don't know what I'm talking about here. It's something about the satellite and how you can have two different pressures. Like one might be medium temp. Satellite usually is the low temp. Unfortunately, we'll probably never know what I said. No clue what I'm referencing here. All right, look at this. Look at this beauty. Look at that. Bolts on the top. Why is that important? Access without oil. Look at this. Remember, the discharge always goes on the bottom of a temperite. Here comes the condenser line. So the flow is coming out of the compressors into the bottom. And why is that? Well, you're about to see. Got to draw the float. Don't forget the float. They utilize a float. Same thing. However, we don't have the same problems because this filter inside this temperite collects all of the compressor waste, right? As remember that mud and I said that wears off the compressors? That filter picks it up. And yeah, you got to change that filter once a year or so. Don't go 2 years. You probably could get away with it, but let's not try. Let's not try. Let's try to do it. Now look at this. You recognize the thing that if you had the coalescent one I drew to be at the beginning with that sack, it's the same thing except for upside down, right? Isn't it? If you flip that other one upside down, look what you got. Same thing. Same thing. It's like the sack, but it's a filter, and it's accessible, and it's changeable, and you could buy them. They're available. They're at every supply house. They clean the system down to like 1 micron or something like that. It's crazy how clean your system will run. Next thing you know, man, your whole system's going to be so clean, but it's imperative that you change this filter, because what happens is if you don't, eventually it's going to plug up and you get a pressure differential. And what happens, these are not paper. Well, it's a paper type material, but it's heavy duty. It's got screening material on there, and it's pretty beefy. It can take some pressure, right? It could take, 10 psi differential, but anything about more than that, it's going to blow. It's going to explode. And guess what? When it explodes, guess what? A lot of that stuff at COT's going to shoot out. It's going to bust its gut, right? So let's not get to that point. Let's get them changed. Anytime you change a compressor, change that filter. Let it run for a moment, Let it push any particles and crap out and change it. But look at this. Doesn't that just look like the coalescent one? 2 pipes in the top. Give it a chop. Just flipped upside down where you can change it. Whoever designed this, man, hats off. Hats off to you, my brother, because it's a game changer right here. Again, this is a coalescent filter, a coalescent separator. It doesn't matter how many compressors are turning. It doesn't matter if 1's running or 5, right? It's going to separate because it squeezes it out, just like the other one. Squeezes that oil through that filter, and oil's got no choice but to separate, right? The vapor goes one way, oil goes the other. Gravity shoots it down to the bottom, and the vapor has no choice, right? Gets pushed right out that line into the condenser. And it's not it's never going to be completely oil free, but it's going to be a lot of oils come out of it, right? The amount we need, right? So when these systems are running, you're going to have some oil out in the system, but it's going to come back. Hopefully the lines are, slope the right direction where oil will drizzle down, and P-traps, any oil that collects will whoosh right on up the risers, right? But yeah, so this is a coalescent temperite, my favorite so far. And I'm going to say so far because there might be something new on the horizon. You never know, right? But it's not out yet, and I don't think I can improve on this. These guys did a good job. Great job. Hats off to these folks at Temperite. The price of one of these Temperites is... they're not cheap, but the savings comes in the system being so much cleaner. The savings come when you get that midnight call. It's not going to be oil fail. It's just not. Unless, of course, you haven't done your maintenance and you haven't changed this thing for 4 years and the filter has plugged up and it blows out in the middle of the night, and then that's on you, though. That's on you. So obviously I just drew a reservoir. And also these things come high pressure oil with a reservoir built in. You can buy either or. So if you do end up changing out a turbo shed high pressure, this comes in a high pressure system, right? Match it up. What you got, put the same thing in there. Obviously, we can change anything to whatever we want, right? We can weld pipes and we can do whatever we want. We can change whatever. We can make it whatever we want. But it's easier to just put back in what was already there. So if you got a high pressure oil system, put in a Temperite with a reservoir, right? Not much to go on about that, but it's something to remember. Put the same thing in. Obviously, I just drew a low pressure oil system, and I'm talking about low pressure oil systems here. I think I've got. Here's where I think I got some questions about how do you troubleshoot it. How do you troubleshoot an oil system? And it was a great question. How do you troubleshoot an oil system? Kind of depends on the oil system you got. So let's talk about a low pressure oil system. How do you troubleshoot an OCV20? Do you know if that OCV20 is working or not? How do you tell? How can you tell if an OCV20 is working? I'm about to tell you here, I think. I think that's what's going to happen here. And I'm going on and on here about, you know, oil. Unfortunately, we'll never know. Only people that will ever know are those 5 people that are on there. So if you're watching this in the future, get into these Wednesday groups, man. I'm telling you, it's you can ask questions, man, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Right? I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything, but I've seen a lot of stuff, and I'll tell you what I've seen. I'll tell you what I've seen and how I've gone about fixing what I've seen, right? And what's worked and what hasn't. I'll tell you my mistakes that I've made and what not to do. And I'll tell you all my wins and like, hey, do this, do it like this. And you do it in these steps and it's going to be a win for you as well. So if you're not already coming to these Wednesday groups, you really should. It's free. I don't charge anything. I don't make anything off the YouTube, and I just do this because I'm fairly passionate about this, you know. I want everybody to learn how to be efficient, right? That's the key to our trade, guys. Efficiency. And I'll keep preaching that, man, till the day I die. Well, I can't say to the day I die. When I retire, man, I'm getting another phone and I'm going to throw mine out. And that's it, man. Sayonara, fellas. But so efficiency. I'm probably talking about efficiency. I talk about efficiency every Wednesday. It's all about efficiency. Be efficient and your job will be easy. This is an easy job. Probably the easiest job you've ever had. I've never dug a ditch. Watched guys dig ditches for our undergrounds, but I've never had to dig one. It's an easy job, guys. Be efficient. And if anybody's wondering how I do this whiteboard, it's a cool thing on Teams. You can see how my hand doesn't block it? It's really cool. You can see right through me. A setting is on Teams. You can make a whiteboard, and when you draw, it sticks, like it remembers it somehow. I don't know. It's amazing technology, man. It's good stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to make this mistake again, man. Dead air like this. Yeah. The group is so much better. Come on over on Wednesdays. Check it out. So I'm going to, I know I started talking about it, I just don't know when, about how to troubleshoot these oil systems. But there's some key things I need to draw on here. And so just kind of waiting for that. I think I talked about it. I don't remember. We'll see here. I will never make this mistake again. What a loss this audio. One click of that button up on top, that microphone thing with the X. What a mistake. Yeah, I'm not perfect. Far from it. But I thought it was important enough. I thought this Wednesday group was important enough right here. Talking about the different styles and why we use them and why we want them and why it's important. I hope I can make that. I hope I can make the point as well as I did on the Wednesday group with this voiceover. As you can see, we're having a discussion. You can see the little purple squares popping up over there. We're all talking and having a good old time, you know. I'll have a beer or two, you know. It's good fun. All right, so I think I'm going to talk right here about troubleshooting the oil system. And it's important to pay attention here because you have to do it systematically. Remember I talked about efficiency? This is where you got to be efficient. You have to take this in steps, right? You know, you come up and you suspect the OCV20 is bad. Now, remember, this OCV20 is a spring, 20 PSI spring, or whatever you buy is a 20 or 30, whatever. Doesn't matter. Anyhow, it's a spring. That's all it is. Not much to go wrong in there, except for there is a seat on there that can go bad, and it can bleed pressure past it. That's what you don't want. So you want to make sure it always has the 20 PSI differential on that reservoir. I don't know why I drew. Oh, so that's not the discharge pressure. That's the suction pressure. I don't know why I drew it on the discharge line. So I'm going to say this rack has 40 PSI on a suction line right now. Ignore the fact that I drew it on a discharge line like an idiot. It's not the discharge pressure. This is the suction pressure we're talking about here. 40 PSI. And I just said 40 for the number, right? Because I'm not a mathematician. Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to get that line over there. Watch what I do. Watch it. Look at the dummy. Oh, go draw it all the way around. Going in the reservoir. All right. So here I'm going to talk about how we're going to troubleshoot this thing. Like that line comes out of that reservoir like that, and it goes to fill up the regulators, and it tees off to all of them, right? So just know that it's not just one compressor. All three of them have it, right, on this one. Now, to see the 60 there, that means that 60 PSI is going to be on that reservoir in order to push the oil out, right? And that line right there, I'm writing suction. That goes to the suction line. But I can't draw it because I can't jump over that other line. It's in the way. So, see that suction, 40 psi and OCV 20. That means that reservoir should be at 60 psi. But how do you know that OCV 20 is working? Here's how to tell. You have to isolate it. Okay? You need to isolate that thing. You can't have it connected to the compressors at all. There's got to shut it off. However you do it, doesn't matter. You got to shut the valves off going to it, except for the suction line that has to remain open. And what I'm talking about here is you take some gauges and hook it up to your discharge line and isolate the oil line coming out the bottom there, so that it's not going out into the compressors. If you don't isolate it, you risk getting a false reading. Right? So I'm saying right there, 200 psi pushing up into the reservoir when that float opens, and it goes into the out of the separator, 200 psi, and it goes into the reservoir, and it will pressurize the reservoir for you, right? And any extra over 60 psi in this instance will go back to the suction line. Okay? That's what I'm showing here. That's the OCV 20 at work. Now, we need to be able to test that. Now, if we test it and it works, it's something else. And I'm going to be honest with you guys here. It's almost never the OCV 20. There's not much in there to go wrong. Honestly, the most problem we have is the float on the bottom of the separator plugs up with that gray mud, which is compressor parts, compressor stuff, plugging it up. Plugs up the tube, and then guess what? You don't get the pressure into the reservoir, and it can't pressurize it up, and the oil won't come out. Right? That's the whole problem. That's usually the problem on these things. So see the X I drew there? That's to shut off the reservoir, right? So there's usually a hand valve there to change any filters or whatever's in that line. You shut it off, and you put some gauges on the discharge line, and you literally open your gauges and you pressurize the reservoir. And in this instance, with 40 psi suction, you better get that reservoir better be able to go up to 60 psi and stay there. If it goes up to 60 and it goes right down to suction, the OCV's 20 is bad, right? Because the spring is not giving you the pressure to stop it. That's all. That's all you do. It's that simple. But if you want to test it, if you suspect it, and I've suspected it, a lot of times, thinking I'm going to get out of the woods, thinking, oh, it's an OCV 20, and I'm done here. Let me be honest with you here. It's almost never the OCV 20, but it can be. But you got to test it, and this is how you test it. You shut off that line, you pressurize it with discharge gas, and you make sure it holds. If it slowly goes down, it's fine, right? If you're looking at it and it's at 60 and it's like goes down to 50 in like 10 minutes or something, it's fine. Enough oil flows through that thing that kind of a drop is not going to affect anything. But keep in mind, if it does drop, maybe it's a good idea to change it in the next couple weeks or whatever. But honestly, fellas, it's not going to be the OCV 20. It's rare. There's not much in there to break. It's almost always going to be, you got to pull that float and swap it out on the separator, which is why I'm a Temprite fan, because the float doesn't get that grime on it because the filter in the Temprite cleans it. And you maintain that filter, you keep it clean, you'll never have to get in there, because guess what? It's not going to plug up. There's nothing in there to plug it up. It's clean oil. But in the Henry's ones, it's gonna get down there. It's gonna, all the crap coming out of those compressors over the years is gonna end up in there, and you're gonna get out there in the middle of the night and you're gonna have to clean it out. And everybody's gonna want to in the middle of the night not want to do that. And we've all done it. We've wrapped on the fucking, excuse my language, we've wrapped on the bottom of the separator, and jarred it and it starts flowing, right? Congratulations. You've made it run for another day. It's going to plug up again. If you wrap on that thing and it starts to flow, I'm not going to tell you to change it that night. It's middle of the night. It might work, it might not. Honestly, if you can change it, if you're not dead tired and you've been working 24 hours, just pop it open, just take the hit, you know. Yeah, they're going to have the oil on the ground, try to catch it in a pan and just bite the bullet and get that thing changed out, the float on the separator. It's not the OCV20. You know, like you hear on the message boards, it's the expansion valve. It's not the expansion valve, okay? It's not the OCV20. Not saying it couldn't be, but honestly, guys, come on. Say it with me. It's not the OCV20. But that's how you test it. That's what I'm talking about here, how to test it. If you want to waste the time testing it, go ahead, waste the time and test it. But guess what? That time you wasted to test it, it's going to take you a good 10, 15 minutes to test it. That's 10, 15 minutes you could have already been, you know, shutting the system down to get in there and yank that float out. And if you don't have a spare float with you, that's on you. You should have one. Because it's so much easier to just to pull the old one out and put a new one in real quick. You know, just cover the wound, put it in there. You got one that works. It's going to work. Go home for the night. Next day, clean out the old one. Because those things can get plugged up like you wouldn't believe. They can get plugged up so hard. I've had to put 200 PSI of nitrogen on one to blow it out once. I don't know what the hell was caught in there, man. But some sort of turd was in there. I don't know what it was. Came shooting out, almost got me in the eye. Which, remember, wear your safety glasses. Where are we at here? We got another 13 minutes. I don't know if I talked about anything else after this. I'm going to watch this for a minute and see if anything else pops up. I don't remember. I think we went into the weekly spin where I give away the prize for the week. But yeah, I think we covered it all right here. Sorry about the delay when Brandon called through, but I'm here for you guys. I'm here for anybody watching this video. If any of you guys would have called, I'd have picked it up and paused it. So, I suffer, you suffer, right? I have no idea what I'm talking about here. Greg's asking questions and I'm answering them best I can. Let's see if anything else happens here. I think I'm saying a lot of the stuff I said, how to, troubleshoot this. But remember, man, it's almost always the float in the reservoir, in the separator, plugged up with compressor goo. Or the bag torn, on two pipes in the top, and you come into an oil fail problem and you've got two pipes in the top, man, you better start sweating. Because you might be in for a ride. That bag tears, man. It's not going to separate oil. And I don't care how much you test that OCV20. It's not going to carry pressure in it, because if that bag tears and no oil's where the float is at, remember that float opens up and releases the oil up into the reservoir. When the oil level rises in the separator, the float rises and releases the oil into the reservoir. That's how it works. But if that bag is torn, nothing's going to be released. It's going to shoot out into the system. And that the reservoir you're going to walk up to, and it's going to be at suction pressure. Why is it going to be at suction pressure? You're going to think, oh, the OCV20. No. It's because the oil regulators on the side of the compressors are wide open. They want some oil. The compressors are suffering, right? They're just sitting there. They're demanding oil. They need the oil, right? It's gone. They want some oil. And it's just going to take the oil right out of the reservoir, and it's going to go right down to suction pressure. Like I said, those things are engineered, for a differential, but they will weep by, basically. If it's calling for oil, it's gonna gets down low. You will eventually get to the 0 psi differential zone, and you will release all the pressure from the reservoir, and you guys are going to be like tricked into thinking, oh, OCV20 is bad. My reservoir is at suction pressure. No, the bag's torn. The bag's torn, or the separator float's plugged up, and there's no pressure coming out of the separator to repressurize your reservoir to keep it 20 psi above the suction in order to feed your compressors. Now, there's going to be a debate here. Can you just add oil to get by for the night? I'm going to say yes. Yes, you can. At a risk. Right? What's the risk? Well, are you going to get the amount right? Because remember, you're going to add oil now. It's not going to, separator's not, pumping oil out. You don't know why, but you just know now that you've wasted 15 minutes testing the OCV20, and it's not the OCV20, right? Now you just realize that I've just wasted 15, 20 minutes testing it, and now I feel like a dumbass. But now you realize that you got to bust into that separator, and you just don't have it in you, man. You've been working 24 hours. I get it. And if you don't have it in you, you don't have it in you. Yes, you can get by with putting oil into it. Just be careful, because you got to get it just right. You got to get it just right. Just the right amount of oil, where a good well-piped system the oil will go into the system, right? The separator's no longer working. Just count it out. It's done. Whatever, the bag's torn, the float's plugged, doesn't matter. Separator's out of the system. And you've had it. You got to get home. You got to get some sleep. And I get it. I've been there. Just be careful. Do it slow. Don't put too much in, right? Too much in is going to get globs of oil back. You could bust a piston. Don't want to do that. Just get enough in where it's just coming back. 2 gallons is a lot, but it might do it. Just remember, once you fix that separator, you're going to have to take that oil out. Don't forget that. I guess you could call it an oil change, right? If, you fix the separator and now you take the oil out, let's just call that an oil change. Or how about we just change it out, put a temp right in, call it good. You never have to change that oil again, right? Does oil go bad? No. There's no combustion, right? It's not like a car. You don't have the hydrocarbons. Nothing. Like, oil doesn't go bad. It gets dirty. Temp right takes care of it, right? So with that being said, I just told you how you can get by for the night. Just don't, if you've got it in you, man, get into the separator and see if you can fix it. If you can't, well, there's nothing you can't fix in there, right? Bag torn, go ahead and fold the bag, put a channel locks on it. It's going to start working as good as new. It really is, right? Bag torn, guys have different ways of fixing it. Like I said, some guys have folded it with a pair of, linemen's. You take fold it with your fingers and then get it to a point where your linemen's could get in there and squish it real tight. It'll hold. And the guys that do that, hats off to you, because it's probably the best way. Because if somebody doesn't change out that separator and it plugs up again on that bag, it's just going to blow the bottom out, right? blow all the guts out, right back where we started, right? But if something, gets missed and we're back out there, it's 2 years goes by or a year goes by. I've seen them run a couple of years with the vice grips in there. But remember, if you're a vice grips guy, you get in there, fold it up, put vice grips on there. Guess what? It's not going to tear at the bottom of that bag again. Next time it tears, it's going to be unrepairable. Unrepairable. You're stuck. You might screw over the next guy so bad. And if you signed to the logbook that said you did that, guess what? This guy's going to see that. So no, I'm not telling you don't sign the logbook. I'm telling you, do the right thing. Bag tears, chop it out of there. 2 pipes in the top, give it a chop. That's all I got to say about that. All right, I'm talking now about heat reclaim stuff. I think I'm going to call it on this one. And I did this because we've had some oil problems where the heat reclaim valve seeped by into the heat reclaim side during the summertime, and we've had oil fail problems because the oil, like I said, some oil escapes, right? Some oil gets by, and if it goes into the heat reclaim side during the summer, it's not going to go through the system, and you're going to slowly lose oil, and it's going to be in the heat reclaim coil. It's an anomaly, but it does happen. Now I know what I'm talking about. The Hill Phoenix racks, right? The orange ones with the heat reclaim side pointing down. Fun times. But that's what I'm talking about now. So I think I'm gonna call it on this one here. We got about 3 minutes left, and that's what I'm talking about here. Heat reclaim coil. I'm drawing. So all right, fellas. Gals, I see. You know what? I'm not being misogynist here, right? It's just a creature of habit. We have women out that are doing this trade, and they're good at it. So I'm going to say folks instead of fellas. I'm so used to saying fellas, but folks. All of you out there, you guys have a safe career here doing this stuff. Be very careful. We got some high pressure stuff out there. If you don't know, don't hesitate to call me. I will help in any way I can. I will give you any advice that I have. Remember, I haven't seen everything, but I have seen a lot, so I'm not afraid to share that. I don't care, if somebody gunning for my job, here's my, take it. You can have it. You guys, this is you will always have a job for life in this industry. This is supermarkets, man. 24/7. Great job out here. You guys all do a great job out there. Everybody, call me if you need anything. I'll see ya.